I remember the day as if it was yesterday. I was at Disneyland, chilling with my friends, and everything was normal, or so it seemed. We were just a bunch of guys, laughing, joking around, and making the most of our day. The sun was shining as we waited in line for Space Mountain, our favorite ride. We chowed down on churros and Mickey-shaped pretzels, making fun of each other for the ridiculous amounts of mustard we used. It was a typical day at the happiest place on Earth. But even in the midst of all that laughter and fun, I started to feel this weird vibe, like a chill running down my spine that wouldn't go away. I remember looking around, scanning the crowd and seeing nothing but happy families and excited kids. I shrugged it off as nothing more than the result of one too many rides on the roller coaster. We spent the day hopping from one ride to another, trying to squeeze in as much as we could before the fireworks started. We even managed to catch a parade, with all the characters dancing and waving. It felt like we were part of a magical world, far away from our everyday lives. But there was something nagging at the back of my mind, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite shake off. I felt eyes on me, but every time I turned around, I only saw the same sea of faces, lost in their own Disney-induced happiness. So I ignored it, laughed it off, thinking it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But as the day went on, I couldn't shake off a strange feeling, like someone was watching me. It was the kind of feeling that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, a feeling I couldn't ignore. And it was this feeling that would come back to haunt me, long after the lights of Disneyland had faded into the night. It started with a glimpse of a woman in the crowd. She seemed out of place, not the usual happy-go-lucky Disneyland visitor. She was different, like she didn't belong there, didn't fit in with the families and the joyous laughter, the cotton candy, and the kids on their parents' shoulders. I first noticed her by the haunted mansion. She was standing alone, not in line, just watching. Watching me, I thought. But then, I brushed it off, laughing at myself for being paranoid. But then, I saw her again, this time by the Pirates of the Caribbean. The same woman, still alone, still watching. I decided to shake it off. You know, coincidences happen. Maybe she was just a big fan of the rides like me. But then, it got weirder. I saw her again, and again. She was there by the Small World, near the Jungle Cruise. Even when I stopped for a churro near the castle. She was always there, always watching. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had a similar route in the park. Maybe she was just a lone visitor enjoying her day. But something felt off. Her eyes, they were different. They were cold, devoid of the usual spark you see in people's eyes when they are at the happiest place on Earth. I felt a chill run down my spine every time our eyes met. There was something about her gaze. It was empty, yet intense. It was as if she was looking right through me, seeing something no one else could see. I tried to ignore her, to enjoy my day, but I couldn't shake off that feeling of being watched, of being followed. It was like I was in a movie, but this wasn't Hollywood. This was real life, and it was starting to scare me. There was something about her eyes. They were cold, almost lifeless. It gave me the creeps. I finally decided to confront her. I mean, what could possibly go wrong in the happiest place on Earth, right? I walked over to her, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. She had this eerie vibe about her, like she was not entirely there. Her eyes glazed over like she was lost in a world of her own. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She blinked, her gaze focusing on me as if she was seeing me for the first time. "Who are you?" she stammered, her voice shaky. I told her my name, trying to sound as friendly as possible, but instead of calming her, it seemed to freak her out even more. She started to back away, her eyes wide with terror. "No, no, no," she muttered, shaking her head furiously as she retreated. I called after her, but she just ran, disappearing into the crowd. I was left standing there, totally baffled. I couldn't figure out what had just happened. Had I said something wrong? Did I scare her somehow? I felt a chill creep up my spine, but I shook it off. I was at Disneyland, for crying out loud. This was supposed to be a happy place. I decided to put that weird encounter behind me and enjoy the rest of my day. I went on rides, ate cotton candy, and even got a picture with Mickey Mouse. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake off that strange feeling. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see her again. But she was gone, vanished into thin air. As the day drew to a close, I found myself standing in front of the castle. the lights twinkling like stars against the darkening sky. I thought about her, about the fear in her eyes, about the way she ran away, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding, like something terrible was about to happen. Little did I know that was the last time I would ever see her alive. The next day, I woke up to the most shocking news. The woman from Disneyland, she was dead. Those words, they were like a punch to the gut. You know, the kind that leaves you winded and gasping for breath. I heard it on the morning news, the anchor's voice cold and detached as she relayed the details. They had found her body, the police did. It was in her home, right next door to mine. I felt a shiver run down my spine as the reality of it all sank in. The woman I'd bumped into at Disneyland. The one with the infectious laughter and twinkling eyes. She was gone. Just like that. The police, they were saying it was her neighbor. Some guy who, they said, had gone crazy because of drugs. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I mean, I'd seen the guy around, always thought he was a bit off, but to think he could do something like this. It was hard to swallow. I remember sitting there, staring at the television screen, my coffee long forgotten. Everything felt surreal, like I was in some twisted dream. The woman's face flashed on the screen, her eyes devoid of the spark I had seen just a day before. The anchor continued, her voice a dull drone in the background, but I was barely listening. I couldn't shake off the feeling, the guilt. I kept thinking, was it my fault? Could I have done something, anything to prevent this? But then, how could I have known? How could any of us have known what was going to happen? The rest of the day was a blur. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept playing the previous day over and over in my mind. The laughter, the banter, the casual goodbye. It all seemed so normal, but there was nothing normal about what happened. As the day came to an end, I found myself staring out of my window, looking at the house next door. The police had left, leaving behind a silence that was deafening. I couldn't help but think, was I the last person to see her alive? A few days later, the police made an announcement. They had found the killer. The words echoed in my head, bouncing off the walls of my mind like a pinball. The killer. The woman's neighbor. A man who had gone crazy because of drugs. As the news sunk in, my heart felt heavy. I mean, I knew the guy, not well, but I'd seen him around. He was just this ordinary guy, you know, just another face in the crowd. I would never have thought he could do something so monstrous. Picture this, a quiet suburban neighborhood, children playing in the streets, families living out their lives in peace. And then, right in the middle of it all, a man losing his mind to drugs, spiraling into madness, and taking an innocent woman's life. It was like something out of a horror film, but this was real life. I couldn't help but think about the woman. She was just enjoying her day at Disneyland, probably looking forward to going home and telling her friends about the fun she'd had, but she never got the chance. She never got to see another sunrise, never got to laugh or smile again. All because of a man who had lost his mind. I couldn't shake the image of her out of my mind. She haunted my dreams, her memory a constant reminder of the horror that unfolded that day. The happiest place on earth had become a scene of a terrible tragedy, and it was a memory I would carry with me forever. And the worst part was the helplessness. The feeling that I could have done something, should have done something. But I didn't. And now, a woman was dead, her life cut short by a man who had gone mad. I'll never forget that day at Disneyland. It was supposed to be the happiest place on earth, but for me, it turned into a nightmare.